Okay, so what did Steve Built do for you here?
They did our complete main floor renovation. So when we bought the house, it was a lot of original 1980s parts, and they took a good chunk of it down to the studs and rebuilt it for us.
It was a lovely home when we purchased it, but it wasn't what we envisioned for our main floor. So we talked to them about kind of what we hoped it would look like when we were done, and then they came back and did the main floor for us. So they made it basically the way we wanted it.
Knocked out walls, all the new flooring, all new ceiling, all new lighting, all new kitchen, new staircase.
Small things throughout the home that we noticed as we were living here longer that weren't part of the main floor reno. They did some of the things that were in our upstairs ensuite. They corrected one or two problems that we had noticed through the home inspection. And also they noticed one or two problems as they renovated the ceiling. So they discovered a leak or two that we didn't know existed that they helped us deal with. So that was kind of like a whole parcel thing that they did for us.
What's it like having that wall out of here?
It's amazing. It's amazing. It took us a little bit to get used to because the space is much longer. Like you can imagine it in your head, but to actually be here when it was done it was different. But it immediately did what we wanted to do. It opened up this space. It's given us a clear view straight into the backyard, which is really like one of the selling parts. It opened up a tremendous amount of light into the room, and it just makes the space feel much more welcoming and functional, because when there was a wall there, we essentially had a room that was not being used, and it would have worked really well for somebody else, but for us it was just a space where things went to live that we weren't using, and so having the wall gone was great.
Yeah, it's a proper family room now instead of a squishy family room and a room that we were using to hold junk in.
If you could sum up how open concept feels to you in one word, what would it be?
Brighter.
I would say that would probably be it, yeah.
Agreeing with me, swear.
I know.
Okay, how did you come across Steve Built?
We actually when we were house hunting, we toured a house that they had done the renovation on. We didn't wind up buying that house, but we liked what we had seen, and when we were looking for a contractor, we got quotes from a couple different people, and Steve was one of them, and we liked what he had to say and what his plans were, so that's how we found Steve. I think the big thing with us was we liked how thorough his plan was. Like, there was a lot of pre-planning meetings with Steve. He came to the house right away, the first step, walked around, looked around, came back with a sort of a ballpark. We met again to say, given our budget, here's our high priority things. He reworked a few things. We wound up adding a few priorities, downgrading a few priorities. I think the big thing about why we chose Steve and Steve Built was we felt like we were getting really clear, realistic answers from him in the planning stage. And I would rather front load all the thought process early so that we really didn't have to do a ton in the construction phase, and we didn't have to make a ton of decisions in the construction phase because the plan was really solid when we signed with him. I don't think we changed a huge amount from the original sort of final plan.
No, and I think that even in the interactions with Steve and the Steve Built team, but in the planning stages, not only did he have a clear vision of what was going to happen and how it was going to get implemented, he could anticipate some of the questions that we had, because obviously we're not contractors ourselves. We knew what we wanted, but we didn't know how to go about necessarily doing that. And he had really clear, specific examples that he could give us for the different things that we were going to do. When we talked about moving out the wall, he said, well, when we move out the wall, this is going to happen or this is going to happen, and you have to anticipate those changes. And obviously we wouldn't have thought about those things. Now, perhaps other contractors would have done that too, but we really appreciated the way Steve kind of anticipated those types of things. And for two people who are out of our comfort zone when it comes to doing a home renovation, we never felt like anything that we were asking felt too small. We felt like throughout the entire process of going through it, right before we even signed, our questions were valued. And anytime that he was speaking to us, we felt like we were speaking on a level playing field, and frankly, open, honest, and frank. And I think that that's something that we both really appreciated, was the dialogue that we were having leading up to our final decision. We felt like the decision that we were making was being respected for the dollar value that was behind it. And our renovation was not a massive renovation as far as they go, but for us it was a lot of money. And so we felt like that was being valued in every conversation that we had.
Yeah, they're awesome.
Yeah.
I've been doing this stuff with them for 3 years, and we just hear this from people all the time.
Yeah. I think it's what a lot of people value, is it felt personal the entire time.
Yeah.
I know it's a business, but every step of the way I felt like, I know that there's other things going on. You can see it on social media that they're doing other things, but we felt every time that we were making a call or any time that we were making a text, we felt like the only clients that were being dealt with at that time, right? Like we felt like we had undivided attention of the people that were looking after us. And that was, really quite remarkable.
So now that all of that planning's done, renovation's done, all the people are finally out of the house, right? Mm-hmm. What's your favorite part of the work that's been done?
I think we have lots of different ones.
Yeah, it changes day to day. For Steve, I'll say the staircase. Because we really went back and forth on the staircase, and everyone has a budget, right? And we were like, maybe we could do less with the staircase. And Steve, you could just see it, and he was right. So there's me on camera saying Steve was right about doing the staircase. So the staircase. But I think for me, can I say two things? I'm going to say two things are my favorites. One is sitting at that island with the coffee bar behind me, looking out on the yard. The island was a thing that we really wanted to put in, and it was exactly what I wanted. Like, drink your coffee, look out on the yard, watch the birds, look at the plants. And then the other thing is just the utility of using the kitchen. We didn't really change the footprint of the kitchen, but we just made it much more user-friendly. And every time I'm not, crawling into the back of a cupboard to get a pot like I'm on my way to Narnia, because I can just pull out a drawer instead. That, right? When you pull out the garbage in the recycling unit. That's my favorite part when I'm doing that thing. When you can get the pans out of the divider racks, then that's my favorite thing. So whatever I'm doing at the moment in the kitchen is basically my favorite thing at any given time.
Mine, I think, is a little bit more simple. I think, or more holistic. I think I enjoy the most opening the door. And when I open the door and I see kind of what we envisioned actually there every time I open the door, I think that's probably it. Minor things, which maybe are major, I actually really like the amount of detail that they put into doing things like fixing some of the corners that were in the room. The lines are really straight around the room. They had an eye for detail that we didn't have. And that goes to speak to the people that they hire, the people that they work with, and the people that are employed for Steve Built. You can tell that they were meticulous in the way that they approach things. And just the lights in the room, it's a small thing, but we decided to do smart lighting, and it just makes a massive difference. And so having a lot of the things being new when you walk in, it just feels like the place that we wanted to walk into from the moment we walk in. That's my big thing.
And the bigger living room.
And the bigger living room.
There's
that too.
And the staircase.
You just keep adding.
Yeah. We're very bad at give us one thing. We're like, here's 7 with 18 ums and likes in it. Sorry. Fix that in post.
Yeah. Side note, I just read Narnia with my partner out loud. It's so much fun. There was like a leak that they had to fix, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, can you name a problem or issue that came up during the process?
We were redoing the blinds, all the blinds throughout the house. And one of the things that we really appreciated was they partner with a blinds installation company, and they had the blinds folks come in and check out the space very early in the process. And as a result of that, we realized that the colonial trim that we had planned to do, that is sort of, you see in some houses, wasn't going to fit with the way the blinds would need to be installed. And so one thing I really appreciated was Dave, who's the project manager, called us to say, the concern is that the blinds won't fit properly. We can explore using colonial trim, or we can use flat stock trim, and these are all the advantages, and this is what the cost differential would be, and this is why you might want to consider it, and if you choose not to go down the path, these are the other considerations. So as Nathan said, we don't know a ton about construction, and so I really appreciated that they called with, here's the concern, here's 2 possible plans. They were ready to go with the answers to the questions that we had, and so it felt like we were very empowered to make a good decision that would then pay off with a smooth blinds installation, which didn't happen till the very end of the project. But had they not been forward thinking and brought in the blinds folks early in the process and put on the trim that wouldn't have worked, we would have been in a real pickle at the very end. And we weren't, because they planned that out from week 2, I think.
And to speak to the other issue that we talked about, when we knocked out the ceiling and when the ceiling was being redone, they noticed that a siding problem had existed that was causing a leak basically over our doorway. We wouldn't have known that. I mean, had we not done the ceiling, that leak would have been there, and who knows, 5 months from now, 6 months from now, our new renovation would have been undone, as it were. So they noticed that, and immediately, in the same way with the trim, they talked to us about what the problem was, what are our options, how they were going to fix it. Of course, that's a surprise, but I think we anticipated that there were going to be some surprises. You can't see through walls. Even though there was a surprise, again, they had a plan, they knew how they were going to deal with it, they communicated that to us. And we still were fully enabled and armed to make the decision that we wanted to make. Even after giving us those options, we still had other things that we could have chosen to do, but they went through and fixed it. And they fixed it, in a seamless, timely manner. It wasn't part of our original plan, and so that added slightly to the budget, but that was negligible. But the other part was, it wasn't part of our plan, and it affected the exterior, and they hired the right people to make the exterior still work. So even though that wasn't part of the main renovation, other things got done, and they still managed to make it feel like it was all part of one big parcel.
They found a time to have the siding folks come in and work when it wasn't going to interfere with the interior work, so you could have interior and exterior going at the same time, which we really appreciated because it did not add to the time that we were not in the house.
I didn't even know that. That's amazing.
Yeah, that was really good. It wasn't a huge deal, and maybe it would have been a thing that no one would have noticed for 30 years, but we did notice it, and you might as well fix it. And really, for the amount of things that could go wrong when you open up a lot of walls and ceilings, we were very lucky that we didn't have a lot of oh no moments. I mean, really, the only things that were not part of the plan were that, and they had to do a little extra bit of HVAC to accommodate moving the pantry. But again, they couldn't figure that out until they gutted the place, and the solution was really quite reasonable and also didn't add any time to the length of the renovation. So kudos.
Okay, so what was your favorite part about actually working with Steve?
For me, it was the communication that we had. We weren't living here, thankfully, at the time. So you have a certain amount of distance from the project, and so you are feeling a little alienated. There was regular communication, whether through photos. They use an excellent app called Construct, which allows us to see the steps of the process. But that entire time, the back and forth was constant. And so even though we weren't here, we felt like we were a part of that process. And I really appreciated at very, very distinct, and set times, we would come in and have the opportunity to talk. We felt like we were always welcome. I mean, it was our home, but we always felt like we were welcome amongst the tradespeople who were here, and they were willing to answer any questions that we had while we were going here. And that dialogue was really important for me. I think that was the thing that I really valued, was that at any time I was asking questions or talking to people, and I always felt like what I was asking felt important to them to answer. They clearly enjoy what they do, and they're good at it.
I really enjoyed that they were very good at anticipating when we needed to be involved and then when we didn't. So like Nathan said, seeing the pictures in the app or seeing the status of each sort of part of the project was really helpful and very relaxing and reassuring to us in a lot of ways, but they were great at tagging us in when it would be beneficial. So, you know, when they were looking at the final sort of rough-in placement for the pot lights, we came down and had a good conversation and wound up moving a couple as a result of conversations around, you know, how do you use the space? So if this is where you're going to be spending a lot of time here, you want this really well lit. And a different family might have wanted lighting in a different sense, and we probably wouldn't have thought to ask that, but I'm glad they did because we wound up changing things. Or when we were at the point where we were getting ready to, you know, do the electrical and the lights installation, good conversations with the electricians about the height of chandeliers and lighting fixtures. And so they were really good at, this is the logical point in the project to have you come down and look at a couple of different paint samples that they had on the wall, right? Or to think about tile placement. And I never felt like I didn't understand what was going on or that I was out of the loop, but I also didn't feel like I was being inundated with questions because we had a really good plan and we just trusted them. Dave likes to say, plan the work and work the plan, and that's what he did. But when it was a question of how would we best use the space, they were really good at bringing us in and taking their cues from our answers.
Dave's a gem.
Yeah, he's great. He's fabulous. Yeah. And he probably get a nickel from every text from me. He'd be on a yacht somewhere. We were hoping to get in before the final finishing touches and the dishwasher hadn't been hooked up or something was wonky. And I texted him to say, you know, I know this isn't a big deal in the grand scheme of things. And he texted back to be like, nope, it is. I am coming, you know, I will be there tomorrow morning. And I was like, great. I loaded the dishwasher before I realized it didn't work and there's a pod in it. So like, when you're done, could you just hit start? And he did. And I came home to a fixed dishwasher full of clean dishes. I did not make him come back to help me empty it.
That was my job.
Yeah, that's your job.
That's cool.
Yeah, you're my subcontractor. Yeah, subtrade.
Okay, so I just have just a couple more questions. So if someone was considering working with Steve Built, what would you say to them to help give that last little nudge they need to dive into a home improvement project?
You should listen to Steve about the staircase. I'll give you the real answer now. Have him into your space and have him look around. Be honest with him and the company about what you want and what you value, because he was great for us at recognizing, you know, we have a budget, there's a pie, and we can talk about different ways to slice it, but the pie can't get bigger. And he was really good at helping us prioritize for ourselves what was feasible and what was reasonable for how we live. So as an example, I was really willing to put extra into a very functional kitchen. And Steve was great at saying, to do that, here are some places where we can make that part of the pie a little bit of a smaller slice to get the part that's gonna give you the most happiness, a bigger slice. But you won't get that if you're not honest, and you won't get that if you don't have him in to see how you use the space. So have a good conversation, be honest, take him at his word, because we certainly found that they were great at keeping it.
Yeah, I would say that both Marita and I, amongst just about any other personality trait, value integrity. And I don't think that there was ever a question about Steve's and Steve Built's integrity. I think they say what they are going to do and they do what they say. And you know that when you're done that conversation and they're actually starting the work, that you have given them a plan, they're going to stick to that plan and they're going to follow through with everything that they've said that they were going to do. And I think that level of integrity is what really, sealed it for us the entire time.
Yeah, the amount of times that people at work or friends would say, how's the renovation going? And I would say, on time and on budget. And they would say, well, I wish I'd had that, or that never happened to me, or you're the first person I've ever heard say that. That was the big takeaway for us. On time, on budget, exactly what we wanted.
The hard part for me, working with Steve Built is now that this renovation is done and I'm paying off this renovation, I'm already planning what I want to do next. I think the mark of the quality of the work that they did is that they've enabled us to have one vision met, and that makes you start thinking about, are there other small things that you could do? There's always, maybe I could make that change, maybe I could make that change. And I think, honestly, that speaks to the quality of what they've done for us, is that I am thinking about, oh, well, you know, it's 5 years, 6 years down the road. I think I might need to do that. And I know who I'm calling.
We felt like we were in control of the things we needed to be in control of, and in very good hands for the things that we didn't want to do or weren't capable of doing, or would be frankly a safety hazard for us to try and do ourselves. And they let me pretend to swing a hammer on the first day of demo, which I really appreciated.